This is the perennial problem. How do you get executive support, organizational support behind the practice? Because otherwise you're constantly in reactive mode. So this working group is digging into just that. They've been working on this for a few months. They made some great progress. Excited to pass to our chair, Ashley Ramatko, to show what they've been working on and see some of the deck. Welcome, Ashley.
Thanks, Cher. Yeah, I'm really excited to come back. If you guys remember, we were at the summit a couple months ago, and we were kind of telling you everything we were going to do, and then we've really executed on a few really neat things that I want to go over. So, for first of all, if you guys don't know, there is two channels. So it's that popular of a topic that we needed two channels. One of them is open kind of to the public, and the other one are folks that have been regularly attending our meetings on Friday. So when we this first got formed, actually back in 2019, a longtime FinOps practitioner, Patrick Borgen, created this channel with the goal of creating a pitch deck to help persuade stakeholders to invest in FinOps. So all that material is still on the Slack channel, and we've just really iterated on that right now. And so I'm here to kind of show you an update of really where we're at. And so the past 4 months, we've been getting together as a group and really been focusing on further defining, like, how do we talk to and influence the folks that would be our FinOps stakeholders, and how do we get them on board to adopt with us? And so that's really what we've been doing a deeper dive into. So one of the first, I guess, deliverables that we've created is, if you want to go to the next slide, this concept of these type of scorecards. I kind of look at them like almost like a baseball card, right? And so we've created these cards that have a variety of executive and stakeholder personas on them. We're capturing what are their objectives, what are their key metrics that they care about, what are they frustrated about, and how can FinOps help address all of that stuff. And so we're hoping that a FinOps champion would be able to review this material for that persona and figure out how to adapt their presentation to that persona, kind of this whole choose your adventure style story, and really focusing on focusing your messaging around the benefits that persona is interested in. And then these persona cards are now up on the website as of about half an hour ago. So you guys can look at these in a little bit more detail, and we'll be looking for your guys' feedback if we're missing a persona, if there's more updates to be done here. But I'm really excited to kind of get these play deck cards out. And the next thing we dug into was the roadmap. So we also shared a little bit about this at the last summit. Next slide, please. And so the roadmap here is just what is that journey that we would want to be taking that stakeholder through to understand the adoption of FinOps? Like, what does it entail? And this really includes all the initial steps to getting the organization ready, all the way until getting it up and running. And so along with kind of the roadmap, which would be great to present to your executive, we've also kind of broken down each of those phases. Whichever, if you want to move to the next step, next slide. And so you can see here for each of the phases that we have: planning, socializing, preparing. We've created what are the exact tasks, what is the socialization effort you want to do in that phase, and ultimately how are you going to launch that practice. And so you want to be able to kind of take these phases and roadmap and also adopt them to what your organization is. And so again, the champion would be able to present this with their case, asking for some type of investment, and be able to really identify to that stakeholder where you are. Are you at the very beginning planning phases? Have you already socialized it with your organization, and these are the tasks that you're working on now? Or are you already ready to launch, and you need to be explaining to your executives what you're going to deliver, and therefore the resources you need to deliver that? So again, it's taking the roadmap one step further of showing you exactly what tasks and actions to be working on in those phases. And again, these are also on the website, so you can dig into those a little bit more. And then the other part, if we go to the next slide, is we really wanted to make sure we could take and integrate the map and the personas together. And so we started developing this concept of a RACI model, so you could really understand each stakeholder's persona and how they are involved kind of with the roadmap. So there are specific things that we're going to need to ask for: budget, involvement of activities, committees, different type of meetings and comms that need to go out. And so we really want to make sure each executive should know what their responsibilities are, what are the key things they're going to get from FinOps team, and what do we need their help and support propagating throughout the organization. So this material is also posted on the FinOps website, and we feel like this is a good way you can kind of take this and adapt it for your organization for whatever your titles are. But it's very common that people will want to know, especially when you start working with a TVM organization or a FinOps or finance organization or procurement, they're going to want to know what is everybody's roles and responsibilities, and we feel like this outlines it really well. Go to the next slide. So what we want you guys to be able to do with this deck is really do this whole choose your own adventure pitch deck. So maybe you have a certain problem that you're trying to solve or a certain opportunity. And so you should be able to take this pitch deck, figure out what persona you're targeting it with. Maybe your persona is finance. And then be able to use the roadmap to adopt the conversation and tell them, here's where we are and here's where I want to get to. And this is the call of action that we need participation from that specific stakeholder. So that's how you will end up using this material to do your pitch. And you can do it for like a really big macro picture, like I want to go out and I want to pitch a FinOps function. I want to pitch a FinOps program for a year, or I've just got this one problem with cross-charging and I want to pitch that to the executives. So you can really adapt it on various levels. So before I turn it over to TJ to kind of go through this, your own adventure, I do want to give a huge thank you to all the participants that have been helping in this working group. This is just a few of them that have been regular, showing up consistently on Friday, about noon my time, but some of them have been coming, late into their evenings. And so it's definitely been a highlight of my week to get together with these folks. And this is my call to all of you guys. If you can join a working group, it's such a good way to meet new people and build relationships. And so I just want to give a really big shout out to all these that have been consistently coming for about 4 months. And while we'll take a pause on this working group now, we're actually really excited to pick it back up in next year and tackle another problem. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to TJ. He's going to walk through a scenario of how he would use this pitch deck and this material that's been developed by the working group. And if you can, please come to the working group. Mike will also be presenting a similar deck in that working group. And I think we'll have it recorded so you can watch it later as well. All right, TJ, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate it. So if we can go to the first slide, please. Great. So when we talk about product owner as a persona, and this is the one that I chose because I think it's the non-tech part that sometimes stumps people and how we coordinate and communicate with people. So from a product owner perspective, you ever think of them as a line of business manager in the sense that, they own the P&L, and we have to try to figure out how to help them run their business, because that's the question that they often ask me, right? So I'm the cloud business manager at Box. And we have a number of different product managers on the P&L that report up to the person that is that runs the business unit. And so when we talk about this, the first question I get is, well, my team is mostly engineering. How can you help me, right? And so we go through a couple of different scenarios, and it ends up being a conversation, much like Jason was talking about. It's really about communication. I am kind of the hub between tech and business and finance, and it becomes most of my time is on phone calls, unfortunately, and not doing as much work as I like to do, but I try to squeeze in some, unfortunately, over the weekends. One of the most important things that we look at when we talk about product owner is really forecasting. Forecasting is such an important thing that I don't people realize how important it is. And so when we go through things, yeah, we need to have budget alerts. That's important. Yes, we do have a forecasting modeler that helps us with some of our committed usage strategies. Even, we use AWS and GCP to the point where, on BigQuery as a product, as a service, there's a thing called reservations, and you can go through and you can estimate kind of what your reservations are, much like a CUD in GCP or an RI or savings plans in AWS. And so things like that, we have modelers that down to the not just overall spend for service, but for multiple different services. One of the most important things that I put up on the first bullet point was identify cost to serve. You have to change your mindset from optimization, whether you're doing right sizing t-shirts, right, or you're doing modernization or waste elimination. They're looking at a different perspective, right? And we also have to flex to that new perspective as well. So we're going to talk about budgets and actuals and forecasts throughout this conversation, how this really works out. Next slide, thanks. So some of the important objectives that they're looking for is they're looking at what's their year-over-year growth, right? And what's their time to market? How can they increase that? And that goes back to a number of different things. So we're trying to figure out what this really means and try to understand from a product owner's perspective, how can we help them? So we want to be able to help them with some of their frustrations, right? Unpredictable, sometimes chaotic cloud spend. Well, what's the usage, what's the utilization, what's the spend? All those come together in trying to help them understand where they're at and hopefully get a handle on where they're going. Can't predict any costs close enough for new features. That's a big thing that we work with them on quite often, is really looking at new features, new product, which tends to lead itself to new architecture and maybe even new cost structures that we need to help them manage, and then take that to a forecasting model. Now we look at cannot predict how costs will change when they actually launch things. Well, that's the challenge that we have quite often. We're in the middle of next year's fiscal planning, and so you look at different models that we're working with today, and again, back to forecasting, down to the project or account, down to the resource, down to the unit counts, right? And so we're really trying to get as accurate as we can. We know we'll never get there, but we start with setting that budget. And then as time goes through, we see the actuals, and then we're actually redefining our forecasting also as time goes on. Unit cost becomes a big issue because we manage to that, right? I mean, for us, we're looking at, how do we audit the bill? We found, some interesting things that we didn't really understand happened. Like there's some services that you can invoke in GCP that automatically adds logging, but you don't really know that it does until you actually get the bill. So you start seeing things like that. You go, okay, so they're doing that on your behalf, but you don't want the logging. And so you have to figure out how to turn off the logging, and how much did you end up costing you for that automatic logging that you didn't ask for. So things like that are in things you just really need to be able to help them understand what goes with what. And then obviously manage the risk, help them understand how to make better decisions. If it's possible, help them predict a little bit more about their cloud infrastructure as the time goes on, and then make sure they're making good investments. And that's really what we do. We help them understand that process. Next slide, please. So you saw Ashley talk about the roadmap. Even though we're in between the kind of the walk run phase, this is really important to understand. How do you plan for it? How do you plan for FinOps? All the different people you have to interview and make sure that you're on track for this stuff. Go through on socializing that. Now that you understand kind of the requirements of the organization, how do you socialize the benefits of FinOps, and then how do you prepare the organization? Once you're really prepared, and some people can say, well, we're not ever really prepared, let's just do it. Then you go to the launch, and again, all of these require a lot of communication. Again, like Jason was saying, you start talking to people, a lot of one-on-ones happen here from the socialization perspective. And we were debating on the group whether we should be doing one-to-many or one-to-one socialization, and the answer is yes, you should be doing both. And so how do you then get to that point where you're really understanding what people are asking for and making sure that you're delivering that as part of preparing for the organization? And then once you go to launch, is now, okay, what do we do now at launch, right? Run is I don't want to say it's easier, but it's that hump you have to get over for launch to get to run. That really traps a lot of people in not really able to effectively either saving a lot of money, or you end up doing things not quite the right way, right? So really preparing is really key to doing this. We talk a lot about defining tags and labels and creating the taxonomies and metadata. For me, that's a foundational step in really kind of the operational component of FinOps. You don't have to necessarily do it all up front, but you have to have some type of taxonomy that's in place. You really have to understand that. Building a toolboxes, as you saw the different phases, as you go through the crawl, walk, run, you may implement different tools for each of those different phases as well. And then you find yourself that not one tool fits the services that you're consuming. So you have to really look at that as an ongoing project. KPIs, so important. Typically we try to answer 4 questions. Where are we today? How do we get better? How are we against a KPI? And then are we actually getting better? So, we look at different measurements to help us understand all 4 of those questions. Thresholds, always good to have the right set of thresholds, although they need to be set in coordination with a product owner. If you're going to set budget alerts and different things like that, define and prepare persona-based self-service dashboards. I don't want my team to start answering 1,000 questions from different people. I want everything to be self-serve. I want everything to be automated self-serve. We spend too much time every day answering questions when they could answer it themselves by going to a self-service dashboard. Forecasting model, again, so important. It helps with committed usage modeling as well. If you know your forecast for the next year, you could do an RI for a year or savings plans or a CUD, whatever you want for that year more accurately. And you can define maybe even a higher level of coverage. And so as we go back to so.
Hey, awesome stuff. I was just going to say, would love to hear more maybe in the breakout if you don't mind.
Sure.
Carry on. I've got a lot of great content, and this is fantastic. So we got the
no
recording.
Worries.
Anybody who wants to continue the conversation, please jump in that breakout with TJ and also Mike. And Ashley, you want to do final words on this one?
Yeah, like I said before, we are going to kind of pause right now, and then we're going to jumpstart things in February and just kind of keep working through the laundry list of things we want to do as this group. And I post this in the thing, but I really want to give a shout out to Mike and Dean from Accenture. They've been huge contributors to this group and really gave us the foundation of that roadmap. And so it's been really nice getting to see the contribution of practitioners and also a group like Accenture come in and have very different perspectives. And we've been able to, drive these huge deliverables. So thank you to everyone that's contributed. And please join if you're interested for the next phase.